Hello,
Hello.
Mara. You're actually smiling. Have you heard a report from or are you at home?
No, I'm at City Hall. I left this morning and said, go at it.
And what have you heard?
I heard she managed to link correctly to all four of her classes. The teachers aren't horrible. Some of them are going to let them cook if they want to while they are, getting ready for class or in class.
Okay.
They can go to the bathroom. These are things she told me. And then she is on her way to softball tryouts. They had to have their cleats on and be on the field at 4.
Okay.
Yeah, 3 hours of softball followed by an hour and a half of soccer after her full day of virtual school.
That's sort of 0 to 60 right away.
Mm-hmm. The calendar looked horrible.
That's all right. From what I've heard of your daughter, she can handle it.
She can. So it was pretty good. How was your weekend?
It was good. We have one left at home who will leave on Thursday. So we're now trying to sort out his life at the moment.
Now, are the other two virtual or actually at campus?
They're both, well, Andy lives in an apartment in Columbia, so he'll stay no matter what. St. Olaf's they're online right now for the first 3 weeks as they test the student population 3 times before they let them out of their dorms. So we'll see if they ever get out of their dorms, to be honest.
Should be fun.
Yeah.
Recording to me? Okay. I mean, that's so. Right here. Yeah, this one. We're probably not.
Sorry for those of you who have my name. It's because I gave you a link later. I think.
Hello.
Hello. I'll be back in just a minute. I'm going to make sure that Karen has Karen on hers instead of mine because I think that's what it is.
I think I can fix it, Joanne. Let me check. Fixed.
Thank you. So how's everybody doing? Is everybody doing okay?
Yeah, doing well, thanks.
I can't complain.
This whole Zoom thing is a very different experience for sure, but thankfully I think here we've been doing it a few times now, so it's becoming pretty normal, except earlier in my 2 o'clock meeting, I forgot to turn on my microphone and I was wondering why no one could hear me.
Yeah.
Well, there were Zoom outages today with
Yeah.
coincided with kids starting school.
Mhm.
Who are all you people? I haven't seen you in 6 months. I'm just kidding. It's Chris. Hi.
Hello.
I feel like we have to reintroduce ourselves.
Hi, Chris.
Hi.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Jamie.
Hi, Jamie.
How are you?
Super. How are you?
Are we missing anybody or do we have everybody? I think we have everyone, right? I see John.
We have Danielle.
I was going to ask Danielle.
Danielle she's termed out, unfortunately.
Oh.
Oh,
I'm sorry, she's what?
Termed out and she didn't apply to have her
Got it.
to be renewed. She said she wanted to give an opportunity to someone else first, but if no one took it, then she would consider reapplying.
Good.
So does that mean that we then need to like post it, or is there a process in order to extend that to the
There's
community?
already a process in place. So the city clerk will notify of the vacancy, and then when people apply, then of course we'll have those interviews by the city council for that position.
does it still go
I
out
think
in?
I'm actually the filler. I'm Elizabeth. I got appointed in March, but this is the first meeting I've been to, obviously.
Oh, excellent.
Welcome.
Hi.
Hi, everyone.
Yay.
Well, just to add to Joanne's, please do encourage people to apply though. It's easy to do through the website. But you all know people who are interested in these issues, so please feel free to recruit.
So Eric, I think you can go ahead and call the meeting to order because it looks like we have everybody, and then we can do introductions and such.
Okay, I can't recall all the procedural language, but as far as on order, I think I'll just call the meeting to order. So if we would go ahead and take roll attendance, if we have anyone that wants to take minutes, or is this recorded session essentially acting as minutes?
We will need somebody to actually take the minutes. So we'll need someone to volunteer, please.
I can take minutes.
Thank
Awesome.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, again, since we have all the names here, do we need to go through that attendance check, or is this essentially sufficient to have it all written down?
I think if Elizabeth can get all of our names, that's fine, and I can provide information as well.
Okay.
I think just at this time, though, if everybody introduces themselves and you can decide how you want that to go, Eric. And
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that if anyone just wants to jump in and start by introducing themselves and where they're here, that works. So I'm Eric Peters. So I'm gonna start just kind of saying like my name, what I do, kind of with that background, how long I've been on the commission and all that good stuff. So as far as I know, anyway. So I'm Eric Peters. I serve as the Director of Sustainability and Purchasing for Parkway School District. So we're a district of like 34 buildings, 17,500 students, oversee all the procurement functions from bidding anything from pens to buildings, and all sustainability projects related from recycling efforts to renewable energy projects and the like. So anything has to do with greening or operations maintenance, that's what I've involved with. As far as the commission goes, like I've been involved on the commission, I don't know, 4 years, 5 years now. I'm not sure, something like that. So if anyone wants to jump in, since we're not around the table, to kind of just like go around the loop, if everyone wants to just jump in and volunteer themselves, that'd be terrific.
I'm just not sure what to order, so I'll just introduce myself next. I'm Joanne Jadali. I'm the interim city manager and finance director for the city. I met with some of you at one of the meetings. I don't remember how long it was ago because I was helping with the technology. We were doing something on the big screen. So, and someone from this group actually helped me because I had some challenges myself. So, but I remember just doing that one meeting. So I'm happy to be the staff liaison.
I am Jeff Tomich. I've been on the commission a few years now, and I am a journalist and write about energy and environmental policy, mostly at the state level in the Midwest.
And I'll jump in there. I'm John Berenson. I think I joined the commission right around the same time as Eric. And I'm president of Fox Architects.
I'm Jamie Hassmeyer. I've been on the commission for a couple of years, I think. And I am a volunteer in the neighborhood and an environmental advocate.
I'm Chris Lubert. I think I'm finishing up my first year. I was picking up somebody's term that was coming to a close. And so I think I've been on for about a year. And I work at St. Louis Shoe. I work with grants administration.
I'm Elizabeth Bloomfield Deal. I started at the same time as Jamie, so I think it's been 2 years. I'm not quite sure. In terms of the commission, I'm a psychotherapist in private practice in Webster Groves.
Hey, I'm Patrick McGrath. Been on 3 years maybe. I do quality and compliance work for Catholic Charities of St. Louis. Lots of spreadsheets, some mapping, things like that. So.
My name is Dale Brentrager. I'm the city attorney for Webster Groves, and this is my first attendance at your meeting. I want to say, as a quick aside, I think that the time that you all devote, the volunteer work that you do is essential. Every committee is important, but I think this one is truly a good one. They all are, but this is perhaps best. And so I'm grateful as a resident of Webster Groves for everything that you all do. I'm also here, we've never had any contact over my 2 years, but I would like to offer or tender to you any information that I can provide, any guidance that I can provide. I'm happy to do that going forward. I would like to assist where assistance is asked for. And again, keep up your very good work. Thank you.
So Laura I'm not sure if you jumped in, and I think, I'm sorry, there's
Sure.
someone else that's with us as well.
Sorry, my one remaining son started to talk to me at the same time. I'm Laura Arnold. I am your new city council liaison. I am very pleased to be here. Neil stole most of my kind words, so I will repeat how grateful I am for your work. And I know that there's been some frustration among some of you over the last year or so, and I want to do my part to make sure that you understand that we want to take this work very seriously and move things ahead. And I will do my best to be very supportive of those endeavors.
I know mine says Webster Groves because I'm helping host on the host computer. But I'm Mara Perry. I'm the Director of Planning and Development for the city. I know I've attended 1 or 2 meetings whenever someone's had an item to bring up. And there's an item on the agenda tonight, so I'm here for that too.
Great. Well, thank you, everyone. Appreciate that. I guess we're going to roll into that real quick.
Eric, can we let Karen introduce herself first?
Oh, yeah. My apologies.
Thank you. That's okay.
Hi, I'm Karen Beck, and I am the administrative coordinator in the Department of Public Works, and I'll be talking about the reusable backpack project today.
Very good. Thanks, Karen. So I think that if that serves as roll call for approval of minutes, if everyone's had an opportunity to look at those from February, if anyone has a thought of what might need to be changed or altered from 6 months ago, definitely let us know. If not, if there's a first or a second to bring those minutes to approve them, that'd be great.
I'll second that motion.
All right. So all in favor of approving those minutes?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, great. Okay, so with that, we'll kind of segue into a couple different things that was brought up as to, trying to kind of reestablish the group. And we've heard some good things about people saying positive things about the group, which is terrific. I think that if it was in February, shortly before, conversation was mentioned about know what actually is the scope of this committee in the commission. So I think that there was a lot of kind of back and forth, and from I'll speak for myself, but it seems that on various different projects or programs that were proposed or discussed with the previous city manager, it was often shot down, or it wasn't in scope, or it wasn't part of what we're supposed to be doing. So I think it's very confusing. So I really appreciate the suggestion that was brought up of like, let's look at the charter and what actually is it that we should be focusing on and doing. So I think that would be a great, I think this would be a great opportunity to review that and just to discuss and what individuals feel like that what the interpretation of this charter represents. So if everyone had a chance to kind of quickly read through it, if not, it's super short. There's attached with the email just the other day. You can kind of cruise through it if you'd like. So has everyone had a chance to look through it?
Yes.
Yes.
And no, it's okay, great. Okay, so from my perspective, I think just kind of like the overall purpose of what it's stating is policies and programs. So related to sustainability, so policies and programs. So I think further on, it speaks more to policies of what that the commission shall be doing. So opportunities for improvement in areas and recommending policies to the city council, encourage the promotion of these interests. So the duties, it speaks a little bit more towards policies, but the purpose also speaks to programs. I don't know if it's defined anywhere on what programs means, but it seems like from what I would think that could be a pretty broad brush. What are others' thoughts on that as far as what programs might mean or what? I mean, policies is policy. So policies would be, and I would interpret that as city policies either within for how the city itself operates or how the city engages within the community. But programs, I think it might be a little more subjective, but if someone can help us out, if there's a more of a defined meaning on what those two words represent to the city, that would be helpful.
Eric, I think, well, the reason I have our city attorney to attend this meeting was because I wanted him to clarify some of those things for us. So I think before we do a discussion, if we could let him share his thoughts with us first, that would be very helpful.
Sure. And for those of you who don't know, the Sustainability Commission began in 2008. You were not part of the charter. You were part of an ordinance that was created in 2008, which recognized the importance of what you do. And it's actually fairly simple, but let me tell you that when we come to things like programs and the definitions of those words, I will tell you that your scope, and maybe this is the best way to say it, your scope is an unlimited scope, except insofar as your purpose says that you're supposed to talk about energy conservation, environmental improvement, and sustainability of resources in Webster Groves. So there's your scope, and it's limited, in my opinion, only by your own imagination and your own creativity. So any information that you all have in that regard is information that is important. To me, the word to be focused on here, because, you know, again, you all bring various experiences, you all bring a very diverse background into this conversation. The only question in my mind is when you have this information and you have policies that you want to develop, how are you communicating this to the city council? Now, it's been my experience in my relatively brief tenure, just coming up onto 2 years right now, that the council has reached out to try and engage more frequent contact with our various commission members, and they're inviting commission chairs to come and speak to the council and talk about the things that you think are important, the things that you want to talk about. So the idea is to create perhaps better conversation and better communication between you as a commission and those things that you think are important to your purpose, bringing those things directly to council. There are, of course, other ways to do it, and that is, you know, again, in writing, you can submit whatever it is that you think is important or might be useful to the council in its considerations. So the important word here to me, though, on the legal aspect is it's a recommendation. And that's one of the hard things to explain to committee members because they spend, and commission members, because they spend so much of their own personal time in these things. You are making a recommendation to council, and council either accepts or rejects those recommendations. And that sounds a little harsh, but again, that's really what it comes back to. But your purpose and your task is to make sure that information is moving from your committee meetings back to council. And again, there really aren't any limitations in that regard. The only place where you would find a limitation is, again, recognizing that number one, it's a recommendation. And number two, if you are expanding beyond your commission meetings, if there's things that you think you need to do, programs, I don't want to use that word, an event or circumstance that you might want to invest money in, and you would need a budget for, you have to get those things approved in advance of doing it, okay? So again, if you feel like there's a need to do whatever it is you feel like there's a need to do, that has to be something that gets submitted. That can be through your liaison, that can be through Joanne, that can be, you know, through Karen, that can be whatever source you want. If you see something that's useful, meaningful, and that you think is something that's important to your commission and what it does, then you simply have to make sure you are submitting that. That then has to get approved like everything in government. Everything's got to get approved, and ultimately some things can be approved by the city manager, some things have to be approved by council. But again, it's like everything else, we have to have complete transparency when we talk about spending money. So I don't think there's any real limitations on your creativity and your imagination. Again, it's just simply recognizing that there is still a process that we have to follow as we go forward. That's not designed to stymie what you're doing. It's just designed to make sure that we move forward in a meaningful way and in an organized way. And again, government at the end of the day is still government, and we have to make sure that we create the file and make sure that we have 3 copies of everything. So of course I'm being facetious when I say that, but it is important that we do follow the process.
Yeah, absolutely.
Questions?
I'm in charge of a procurement department for a public school district, so I definitely know policies and government and steps and I's dotting and T's crossed. So we have to do that with every purchase. We have to do that with board recommendations, et cetera. So there's a lot of similar alignment. However, I think it's still a little unclear on what those processes are. So with regards to what so as far as scope, it sounds like, you know, we've got a broad brush on what, you know, as you mentioned, kind of like what the group's imagination is. What is that process for recommendation? Is there a certain type of format? Is that, you're saying as far as communication avenues, it could go potentially directly to council as opposed to through the city manager? Is that how, did I hear that correctly? Or so I got a couple different questions. Format for recommendation.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. It depends on the nature of the item and the immediacy of the problem, okay? So again, if it's something that presents itself in a short term and you feel like it needs attention right away, you know, that would be the sort of thing that you as a commission could meet on and decide whether you need a short track or whether you can do a longer track. And the short track would be directly to the city manager in this situation, where you would communicate with them and you would speak about whatever the issue was. Another way to do it, and frankly, this is one thing I don't have, and I don't have any information on this. One thing you as a committee can do is kind of set up those rules yourself. You as a commission can say, look, you know, let's create some rules about how we do this in tandem with your council liaison, and come up with what you think is the best way to communicate this information. Part of the reason you have a liaison is to talk to that liaison as well and make sure that this information is being properly vetted and you're deciding whether it needs a fast track or whether it can be something that takes a little bit longer. So I guess what I'm saying is a lot of this is ultimately going to depend on you, but you have a lot of contact points, okay? In again, your council liaison and the city manager, you have lots of ways to make sure this information gets up there. And it really comes down to the immediacy of the need to determine how quickly you need to do that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, if I could jump in for a minute, since we've referred to the council liaison several times here. My job is both to bring you information about what we as a council are working on, for example, that I think would be of interest to this commission. For example, in Mara's department, she's organizing some public hearings this fall on some zoning things that have environmental impact implications that you all are going to want to know about. So I bring information to you, but my other job is to keep the council abreast of what this commission is working on. So every meeting, so the next meeting we have, I will give a short summary of what we covered in this meeting to alert the council to what we're working on. If there are things that you think are best asked for of the council in an informal setting in our work session, I can certainly raise those issues in a work session. And there's some things I agree with Neil that you're going to want to write and ask for a particular response. For example, some of you signed on to a letter asking for some questions of our city manager candidates in the upcoming interviews. And that is a perfectly great way in my mind to do some communicating, because it's very specific and all the council understands exactly what you want, and they don't have to rely on my translation. And sometimes I know you want the words to be yours. So I would keep that in mind as well. But I am here to facilitate that communication in any way I can, speaking with all of you collectively, or if individually you have things you want to tell me, that works as well.
And I wouldn't get too caught up in the procedure itself. I wouldn't worry about, having to put it on 8.5 by 11 paper and all that sort of thing. It's more important that you communicate the information. The method and the manner is perhaps not as important, but again, use your own imagination and your own creativity in that regard. It's going to get back up to council one way or another, or to the city manager if that's something that's within her purview. It's going to get to the right people and it will be acted upon.
I have a question, if I could. I am curious to know, because we started to do this about a year ago or so, meet in subcommittees. And I don't know if Joanne, you could speak to this, or who can speak to this, but then toward the latter part of last year, those were kind of frowned upon. I do feel like this group gets can get a lot accomplished if we are meeting together with the proper notification posted for the public in between our meetings. And so I just am wondering what the general tone is or procedure is to properly go about that, so we can continue that work and kind of do like more heavy lifting between meetings.
That's a great question. You're running headlong into the Sunshine Law. Because you are a commission of city government, you are governed by the Sunshine Law. And that means that when we have a meeting that includes a quorum or greater, we're supposed to post that meeting, and it's supposed to be something that's public, okay? So again, we do run into that. So you have 6 to 9 commission members, as I recall. How many do we have now? We have
8.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Am I counting that right? So 5 is going to be a quorum on that 9. If you had 6, 4 is going to be a quorum on that 9. So again, anytime you meet in a group that is a quorum or greater, you have to post it as a meeting. Now, there are also then a whole lot of subcategories of that sort of thing, and that's when you're looping together a series of emails. Now, it doesn't prohibit what you've just asked for, Jamie. It doesn't prohibit that at all. So say, for instance, you decided you were going to send an email to Eric, and Eric thought, well, that's interesting. I'm going to send one to Jeff, and Jeff just forwards your email, or Eric forwards your email to Jeff, and Jeff to John, and John to Elizabeth. Now we've ended up with everybody on that email. The one thing I would say is if you include in the emails Katie is then going to make sure that those emails are stored. We have an obligation under Sunshine to store those emails for a year. That's all we have to do, and we'll store them. She will save them, and it will allow you to do what you've just described, but then those are things that are also available for the public to look at. So if there's a Sunshine Law request that's made that says, hey, I want to know what Jamie said to Eric and Jeff and to John and to Elizabeth, we could pull that up, we could look for that, and we would be able to produce that. So rather than prohibiting it, it really just sort of marshals how you do it. We do have to pay attention to that. Katie Nakazano is the city clerk, which you probably know. If you simply copy her on those emails, then those emails will get saved. So that will allow you to do what you're talking about. If you're meeting in groups of 2s or 3s, less than a quorum, that doesn't require posting. But if you meet in 3 groups of 3s, which would allow all 9 of you ultimately to get together, then I would say in a situation like that, memorialize it in an email and say we met to talk about A, B, C, or D, and then forward that on to Katie. Now we've done what we need to do. And you can, within your own time frames and within your own time limitations, you can get together and have all the communications you want to do. We've simply now saved them for the public to look at if they want to see it. And we only keep those for a year.
Can you educate me on what these subcommittees were? What were they for? I mean, what
Sure,
was the
yeah.
topic?
We at first was trying to decide what to do about the plastic waste issue, and that's where kind of the plastic bag idea that we kind of picked up from Deb Frank and ran with that. That, and I know we've talked about pedestrian and bikeability in Webster. Guys, what else have we met about? I'm not feeling. Sorry, one second.
John, I know you were looking at energy codes there for a minute, right? So I think there's some conversation that went back and forth on that.
Sorry, Eric, I missed that. My youngest was looking for the remote, so very vital stuff going on here.
No, John, I believe like you were in conversation and looking at different energy codes and such, correct?
We did a little bit of that. I mean, just basically kind of the types of follow-up that it's really difficult to do in a 1-hour meeting.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's in summary, I think what subcommittee is for, like to actually do the work, and it's not, we can't do it in isolation. So it's, in order to better actually get stuff done, because I feel like our meeting is just kind of spent time kind of recapping or making sure that we're all on the same page and going through some of those formalities of what are we going to work on, or maybe it's a review of the project up thus far and as a group what our direction needs to be. So like I think that we have an understanding of that's an effective use of when we're all together, where we're trying to work on nuts and bolts, like we can do that better apart or meeting in smaller groups. That's the idea of the subcommittees, that essentially just get more done.
Sure.
And in the
And
past,
with an eye on transparency, all you have to do is save those things.
in the past was like the topic brought up, and then in the meeting, the subcommittee was joined, and then they got together afterward? Or was it a subcommittee of individuals who are not a part of the Sustainability Commission?
No. It's all commission members. Okay. They're not like, we're not bringing on necessarily other people unless we're looking for outside support. Like that might be something of matter of as an example. So like when we went through the Green Cities Challenge or whatever that was, and like that's something I think that we might have met or talked with other individuals outside of trying to learn what other people are doing. But that's just more information gathering as opposed to them actually driving the discussion or direction or anything along those lines.
Sounds good.
One other thing I want to add to this, if you're sending out emails where you're talking about whatever it is you're following up, try to be very careful not to vote in those emails. So don't send something along that says, I'm in favor of this, are you? Because then it looks like a vote, okay? So again, if you were to simply say, look, this is something I could support, let's take it up in the next meeting, save the emails, and in the next meeting, simply say, save the emails by sending them to Katie. You don't have to try and save them yourselves. But at the next meeting, say, here's what we talked about. There was conversation in emails among us, and now we're going to put this to the commission for vote. You've done everything Sunshine wants you to do.
And this is back to your point that you're making as far as quorum goes. So if this is in a group of 2 or a group of 3, and those emails or messages are never getting forwarded or sent to the greater group that gets into that quorum number, we're fine. We don't have to necessarily track
That's
those.
right.
Okay.
That's right.
Great. Okay. So I don't know if much of the work was done much beyond a group of 3. I mean, maybe at times, but not too often. Is that right, Jamie?
There you go.
Yeah.
Remember, quorum or greater.
Okay. Thanks. I appreciate that clarification.
Certainly.
Okay. Well, great. I think that's a help as far as while we're on this topic, I mean, do we want to digest this, or do we as a group want to identify if we want to come up with certain rules or anything like along those lines, is like how we want to operate as far as bringing recommendations to council or to city manager or anything along those lines?
Well, Eric, if I could add, I think one of the things that has been on my mind, I think other people's mind, is that as I read through the information that has been sent on our commission, and it talks about fostering policies and it uses the term coordinated effort. I think a lot of times some of the things that we might be talking to the commission about and talking about in the commission were actually things that were originated outside of our group, but that we felt had an impact on the sustainability of the community, correct?
I would agree with that. Yeah, I think sustainability, it has a connection point to literally everything. So I think that sustainability is the idea of furthering the principles of policy programs that create energy conservation, environmental improvement, and sustainability of resources at Webster that could literally have a connection point into any other form of operation.
Like for instance, the firehouse. And I think that for myself being a commission member, what I'd like to be able to do is, to understand maybe better from our council liaison when those types of things are coming up and how we might be part of the process and be basically help, right? Not, we're not out here to hinder things, but we would like to know about things. It felt like some of the times in the past, the input that we had, really these policies were too far down the road to really make any input on what happened.
I think it's a valid point, John. So I think that like Laura, I really appreciate what you're saying, is like to actually serve as a liaison to provide information to us as opposed to one-way communication, one-way recommendations. I think that to John's point, I think would bolster effectiveness of this group. So that way, if there's a project that's at 80% now, then yeah, we might not be able to have much input that can change direction. Like that's fair and fine. But then if we're talking process, like at what point in a initial stage can we be a part of that conversation, so that way we can see and explore and have enough time to see what options might be in order to steer that project, program, policy, or what have you to be more sustainable. So I don't think any of us want to like throw a wrench into the gears of things to get things to stop and hang on and wait for us to do our volunteer thing. But I think we would like to be able to add some value and use our volunteer time to be able to support and find avenues to better achieve that purpose stated in the ordinance.
I would like to just insert something here. I think that I definitely am very willing to work with Laura. I already think I work well with Laura on a number of things, but I would encourage you to also work with me, because I want to make a positive impact on what I do with the Sustainability Commission. But I also will know some of the operational things, since I have the direct interaction with the fire chief and the other departments. And so I might know a few more details. So I'd encourage you to also work with me. Thank you.
I'll just add to this. I appreciate the conversation, John and Eric, especially about that, because frankly, what I will do now is default to telling you things that maybe you don't really need to know. And then you can begin to tell me, yeah, that's not what we're interested in. I'd rather err on that side than the other side. And, it is there. I actually made a list, so it's something, we'll wait till it's my turn on the agenda, but of things that I think you all need to know about that are coming forward. So.
Okay, great. Well, I think, so as to not consume the rest of the, 23 minutes or so here, are we all okay with kind of what we've heard so far? And this can be an evolving conversation as to hearing what we've heard on scope as far as how our process might be able to improve in order to achieve that scope. Are we okay with moving forward and going on to the next items of the agenda, or are there some other elements we want to make sure that we discuss?
I'm good. I think it was very helpful to review that ordinance that created the commission. Understand that. I mean, it seems like kind of really a blank canvas, and that we're here to sort of serve as an advisory role, more or less. So that was helpful to me. Good background to have, and I would encourage, when new commissioners come on board, to to kind of make this a little bit more clear to them from day one. I think that would be a big help.
I'm going to take my leave because I have a federal judge who thinks that she's very important and that I need to talk to her. So, and I have a client who also thinks that she's very important. So I'm going to take my leave from you all now. But again, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate. My email is available. My phone is available. I answer it all the time. And I live at 462 East Jackson. If you're walking by, just come by and say hi. So again, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. And if I can facilitate anything, you've got a great liaison. She's going to make sure you're well taken care of. Laura is of course terrific to work with, and Joanne, she knows it all. So if there's anything I can do in my own small way, I'm happy to do it. And with that, I'll take my leave.
Thank you.
Bye all.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. But yeah, I agree. I think it's all been very helpful, so thank you. Okay, well, next up on the agenda is to touch on the reusable grocery bag grant. So Karen, thank you for your time, and if you want to update us on those items, that'd be terrific.
Yes, I'd be happy to. Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be with you and give you this update. I wanted to let you know too, in case you have some questions, always just feel free to start asking. Also with me though is Todd Ray, the Director of Public Works. So he's also here and available for any questions. Yes, he's here. So I kind of wanted just to pick up where we left off 6 months ago. And that was where we knew that the grant had tentatively been approved and the district funds were $44,000, which was proposed. But then we got the news that it was tentatively only approved for $15,000. So then we were looking at $15,000. How are we going to spend that $15,000? We had bags to buy, of course. We have educational materials, questionnaires, things of that nature. So I put together some numbers and they were reviewed by Christine and also our prior city manager, Steve Wiley, and Mayor Welsh. And so we put together the budget that you received in the email. Kind of shows the breakdown of, we allocated a huge amount, of course, to the purchase of the bags. So out of that $15,000, $12,608 were allocated for bags. Another $1,950 were allocated for the design and printing of educational materials, and then that quiz questionnaire that we were talking about giving out with the bag. The other two line items was for a tent wall banner, basically that could just tell people about the sustainability and kind of maybe an overview about the reusable bags. And then, of course, we had a table runner just to make the surface pleasant to look at. So we submitted that $15,000 budget with the breakdown. And it took a while because of the pandemic, but in May, the district did approve the budget and gave final approval for the project itself. With that, you've probably all worked with grants. There's lots of different guidelines and lots of different things that they want. So there were numerous different types of documents that they asked us to complete and send in, which we did that. And then even though we had a really good idea how much those reusable bags were going to cost, the district also, as a grant requirement, required that we provide a written specification that they had to review before we could do anything with it. So I worked up a specification sheet, and you should also have that too with your handouts. And that sheet, it's basic, but it also allows other vendors to submit other types of bags, hopefully with that same 100% rPET content. But it kind of gives a broad scope over what we're looking for and how other vendors' bags may differ. So then that's kind of where we are now. I'm ready to send that quote out and hopefully get some quotes in another week or so. And then we'll be looking to everyone to kind of review those quotes, make a selection. We also have to look at the districts requiring all 3 logos on the bag. So we did, as a cost saving measure, we did put all of those logos tentatively, it's on one side of the bag. So it'd be the Webster Groves logo, the DNR logo, and the St. Louis Jefferson Solid Waste Management District logo. That's kind of it in a nutshell. Does anyone have any questions about it?
Yeah, actually, I really like it.
Well, I have a question, I guess, and it's perhaps I don't know how we answer this, but we had intended to give them out at these mass gatherings, which I don't think will occur. So I'm wondering what we'll do now.
I was going to ask the same thing. That budget that we talked about, Karen, was pre-COVID, and I don't know, you know, I don't even know if we need, how we can distribute them. We're not going to do tables and banners and have at the Art and Air. I mean, I don't know. A lot of that money, I don't know if we need it for those items anymore. And how do we distribute them now in this era?
They won't even let you bring a reusable bag into the store.
Yes, yeah, that's true.
Yes, we looked at all of those things too. This grant is for an 18-month period of time. So we haven't discussed whether or not it could be extended beyond that time, but right now it does have a 18-month time frame.
What was the start date again?
Was the end of March, I believe, or excuse me, the end of May, like May 26th, I believe.
So, I mean, I don't know. I've been thinking about this because it's like the mode of information and the whole thing was so before this time.
Yeah, Karen, I think, did you add or was that you, Joanne, who added the graphic from 1STL for the plastic bags and wraps information?
Actually, what I sent today,
yeah,
that was actually from Karen also.
Okay, great. Thank you for sharing that. I'm working with that group that is pulling that messaging together, which also we had to throw the brakes on because we were supposed to do Plastic Bag Awareness Day in the middle of April. And obviously the drawing board trying to figure out what are the next steps. And if we do have a bit of time to kind of flex, I wonder if we should just take a minute. I think it might be interesting to hear what they have to say or what they're going to do, just because there's so many knowledgeable brains in that group on how best to proceed, because they also wanted to obviously reduce plastic bags and promote recycling of plastic bags and wraps. So I don't know how we go about that now that we've gotten to this point with the plans that we had pre-COVID, which were like all community. Now nobody's doing community, unfortunately, right now. You know, what does that mean for us as far as like how grants work, and can we put a press pause before we even put a request out for other bag prices.
So yes, I totally know what you're talking about, Jamie. I reached out to Jenny Wentz, and she's actually provided that handout, which I thought was amazing. So we're putting it on our website, and hopefully we'll run on the Facebook page, and we do have them here in the lobby too. So in just a brief email with Jenny, she had really no clue basically what was going to happen. She, you know, some of the bigger stores still aren't allowing you to take reusable bags even in them to fill them.
Correct.
So, and some, it's kind of spotty as far as people who have some of those plastic store bags, how to properly dispose of them. You know, some of the grocery stores have bins outside and some don't. So it's kind of a hit or miss. She really didn't share any type of feelings as far as what the future holds, just that it's really just kind of up in the air right now.
Okay.
I mean, with that, like, does it just make sense to just continue to put this on pause? And if we don't hear that there's additional direction from that larger collaborative within, you know, OneSTL or what have you, of any other type of way to move forward, does it make sense just to, again, put this on pause? And if we need to ask for an extension, if we're getting close to that deadline, then do that then if nothing comes. But if something comes, then let's be a little opportunistic and jump on it when an opening may present itself.
There's a couple different ways really to go about it. Yes, that's certainly one. You have to keep in mind, if these bags if we do get these Bagito bags, they are coming directly from China. So it's not something that we can put our hands on right away. It could be, you know, a 2 or 3 month delay as far as by the time you order and by the time they actually arrive. Plus, working with the district, especially now during this time where a lot of people are working from home, a lot of things are taking longer too. It took them several weeks to review that 1-page specification and to give an okay and an approval to move on it. So I guess what I'm saying is that all of these different parts of this all take quite a bit of time. So they're going to want to review any quotes coming in. Once we settle on that, the design graphics for the logo, they're going to want to see that. They're going to have to approve that. And you all, I'm sure, will want to participate in how that looks. So there's not only the delays of you all looking at it and viewing it and approving it and making your suggestions, but there's also the fact that it's taking quite a bit of time to get approval through them for just the few steps that we've worked through. So we'd also have to line up and put together, you know, the educational material. Those all have to get approved. So I guess what I'm saying is it just takes quite a while to get all these things approved. So if somebody magically came up with a vaccine at the end of the year and said, oh, everyone's going to have a vaccine by the middle of next year, there's still a whole lot of processes that have to go before we can actually have bags to distribute.
Few things I want to think about. The business districts who are meeting and trying to figure out how best to operate are looking at some options of smaller events, more like sidewalk sales. So it might end up being something where you could distribute it to the various small businesses, and on the sidewalk sale day that they'd be having, have them distribute it to shoppers. And then that shopper can then be doing their sidewalk sale with the reusable bag. The other thing you might think about, I know, you know, when my kid went to pick up her books at the high school, you know, they said, bring your own bag. And they had all of their items, things like, she came home with a paper bag that they had already put all of her art supplies into for her class. It might be worth seeing if the school district for some of the classes might do something for spring or whatever it is, that when they go to pick up their books or go to pick up something with school, that they could have those to hand out. So it would go to different families who live in Webster Groves, and it might be another option that doesn't require you to be in the same kind of grouping that you're in.
Those are all good thoughts.
Those are great.
Joanne also mentioned, she had a great thought too of using those in new resident packets, which, you know, is great also.
Huh.
The only thing we want to keep in mind, if one of the aspects of this grant is, and I believe this group also wanted to do this to kind of gauge some feedbacks from the people receiving it. So we were going to ask them to fill out kind of maybe a quick questionnaire, or it was going to be a quiz or something like that when they picked up the bag. So we'd actually have something that we could then provide in some type of form as for the grant.
Are we bound to that quiz?
So I'd have to take a look at the fine print. It kind of looks like we are.
It's okay. I got an
If we could
idea.
offer up something else though, we might
No,
be
we got an idea. When we give out the things, the packs, you give them a little, like a thing like this with it, and it has a URL like a Google survey. Whether or not they answer or not, that's their stick. But because I don't think anybody's going to let us pass paper out and give it to each other at this point. But if this isn't touched by anybody and it's, you know, in my reusable bag, as an example, then nobody's touched it. If they respond, great. If they don't, you know, we tried. That's one idea.
Yeah.
To honor the survey part of it.
So I'm just looking for some guidelines on what direction we're going next.
Well, do we think that we should proceed with ordering maybe more bags, taking some of the monies that we were going to use on table and signage and put that toward bags, and then just a small, maybe informational pamphlet or postcard and the quiz information on that same thing? Does that seem more COVID friendly?
It does to me.
It does.
Once again, the district has to approve when they have the itemized expenses. So they have to approve, like moving the $290 for the table runner. They'd actually,
okay.
You know, I'd have to submit that request and they'd have to approve it.
I just don't see us going anywhere near people. I don't see us ever, yes, I think it's worth the time to move that budget, because I don't think any of us are gonna be doing any group events at Art and Air for a long time.
Yeah.
And let's use it towards at least a good. I like that school district idea, and I like this small business and the new resident packets. I mean, then it's only being touched one time by a person, totally COVID friendly.
Right.
And take out all the money out of the banner, the table. What was the other thing?
Well, there's really only two other line items. You know, there's the $152 for the tent wall banner, and then the $290 for the table runner. So that's what, $450. So it's under $500.
Yeah.
The other information is, you know, the educational material. You know, I mean, we could do a lot of different things. We can go forward with planning this and get the quotes. We could put a pause on the whole bag issue for 6 months. And so every 3 months, I'm required to submit a grant manager's report, which one is due this coming Monday, the 31st. And, you know, I can also send an email and tell them that we want to press pause, that we'll continue with our 3-month reports, but we can just kind of sit back and take a look. So we have 2 ways. We can do that. We can sit back, hold off, or we could go forward and try to get these bags with the quotes and all that and look at distributing them in different ways than what we originally planned.
Karen, if we do pause for 3 months, do we still have the same 18-month window to distribute the bags?
As far as I know, the grant period is 18 months. So the whole purpose of those reports is for them to pace us and to try to figure out, to make us responsible. So I think if we, I've got some time, staff time, and the city manager at staff time in reviewing those specifications and preparing them. But really, there's nothing else really to report other than, we're kind of at a standstill right now.
Those reports I think could be pretty brief too. Like if I remember, like I've worked on several of those. I think if you just kind of provide that type of status updates, hopefully that's sufficient.
Hopefully so. The district requires more than what, say, the county does. The county's reporting is very light, very brief, and maybe one report and you're done. The district, it's every 3 months until the time period runs out. I'd have to ask them, though, that if I filed this report on Monday and we wanted to press pause, what their guidelines would be for that, if we could get it pushed out beyond those 18 months, or if we just actually don't do anything for several months and we still have to work within that 18-month timeline.
How about if we do this, Karen, if you could check on that within the next couple of days, and then I can give the group an update on it. And then maybe at the next meeting, we can have a further conversation on this and decide whether or not we want to pause it or not. And I'm bringing this up because I think we need to move to the next topic since we're already at 5 o'clock.
Can I ask one question quick before we switch topics? For the grant, does it have to be do we have to purchase bags for it, or could the money be used to do something like work on lobbying for legislation that has like a plastic bag tax, or like some sort of ban on plastic bags like they have in California? Is that possible for the grant, or does it have to have the plastic or the bag purchase?
This particular grant is all based on the reusable bags, so it could only be used for that. You could
only to purchase reusable bags, not just to say, not in any way to try to make them more available.
And just to your point, Elizabeth, the funds or the authority is actually essentially kind of like a subset, if you will. It's a district, a waste district from Department of Natural Resources, and so while the funds are collected at landfills, essentially, like it's overseen by the state of Missouri. So using funds for lobbying the state of Missouri when it's essentially overseen by the state of Missouri doesn't
Sure.
So if it's but yeah.
Okay, that's it. Thanks.
Okay.
I think that's a great plan, and we might know a little more about what direction the one STL group is going to go into, and maybe we can then coordinate. Then in 30 days, we might know more. I know we're meeting like twice a month at this point, so yeah.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Karen.
Okay, thank you. Have a nice evening, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Karen.
Thanks, Karen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, well, next up on the agenda is discussing the Crossroads Business Districts, the walkability. So Mara, thank you for joining, be able to kind of chime in on that one. I know we, 6, 8, however many months ago, we were kind of discussing various areas about the walkable, bikeable plan, one to include that intersection in Big Bend and Elm. But yeah, if you want to kind of pick that up, that'd be great.
Sure. I know we last met, I think, February. And at that time, I was working with Crossroads with potentially trying to apply for federal funds again. They'd been denied already twice, but they were still thinking about applying. So we had a scenario that had been drawn up. They actually had 3 designs drawn up to expand the sidewalks, do some new bump outs, and make better crosswalk at both the Elm intersection as well as at the Gore intersection. And so everything was looking pretty good. We sent it over to St. Louis County because this isn't our right of way. We don't have the ability to just make those changes. And the Director of Public Works and I happened to be at St. Louis County meeting about a completely different project. And we said, hey, can we talk about this? And as we started talking with them about it, they just kept throwing at us, nope, you can't do this. No, you can't do that. No, we need a full traffic study. And they pretty much nixed everything that we had moved forward and proposed. So then COVID happens. It paused all of our meetings with Crossroads. Crossroads met pretty much for the first time in the last 2 months. We've met twice now. We kind of did the same thing, I think, that you're doing with the bags. We did a little bit of a pause, tried to figure out last month what some of our options might be, grabbed some information from our engineers, and now they are moving forward with asking St. Louis County to just let them redo the sidewalks and do some of the basic bump outs. They're going to ignore the Gore intersection completely, and they're going to try and fight for the change that they wanted to do at the Elm intersection. I don't have a drawing here to really explain it to you, but right now, if you are in front of the Porter Paints intersection corner, and you are going down and trying to just cross the street to go south, crossing over Big Bend, it goes in a very large diagonal. It goes from the intersection to the little pork chop island, and then you cross over the island again. Well, our proposal from our engineers was to put a bump out so that they would be crossing less of the intersection, as well as was straightening it out so that it wasn't as long of a diagonal and it was more of a short cross at that key point. And county disagrees and says that's going to be less safe because they feel that people doing a turning movement going southbound and turning going westbound on Big Bend are not going to see people in the crosswalk. So my next step with what Crossroads is asking me to do is to do a little bit of a fight with St. Louis County, send it back over to them, see if they'll move forward. The budget was already in our capital improvement fund to have at least, we have about approximately $80,000. And it's a couple years out because that was the match for the federal grant. So we're going to also have the estimates put together to see about the sidewalks becoming ADA accessible, the sidewalks becoming a little bit wider, and then trying to get the basic bump outs to make some better crossing movements at Alma and then hopefully at Elm. So that's kind of where we are. They're asking me for the next month to have some better understanding from county and some cost estimates from our engineers.
Is there a way maybe that could you share drawings with this group, or could that be kind of attached to the minutes before setting out for approval, just so we have an idea of what the looks like?
Yeah, I can definitely do that. I want to share it with county first because I hate putting, again, the scenario, if I'd showed you the one, you would have been like, wow, this sounds great. I really was hopeful at the last design. I'd rather not get everybody moving forward without county. It's not our road, so it's a little difficult with the other thing, but I'm going to send it to county first. As soon as I get an understanding, I would definitely send that on to all of you.
Great, thank you.
Mara, can I ask 2 quick questions?
Yeah.
Does that include like repainting those crosswalks so that they're more visible because they're all chipped to heck right now? And then also, was there any mention, and I know this is pie in the sky, but bike acknowledgement at all?
So county does not want to do bike acknowledgement. There's just not enough width to do a dedicated. They would do share the road, but their plan or their time frame of how they do some of it is related to a big long list of all their roadways that they have to take care of. So it would include restriping the crosswalks. It would also include restriping the lanes themselves. So for those that do know, from Barry to Rock Hill. They redid all of that. So there's now, and I hate using the word, but there's a suicide lane down the middle, and there's now a lane in either direction. And I think it's made the Rock Hill intersection so much safer for the kids that were walking to Clark. They don't have as many lanes of traffic to cross now with that middle turn lane. The lines then had a really awkward way. They just end before you get over the bridge over 44. Part of what we would do is trying to tie in the rest of that striping so that you'd have a much more logical, safer amount of striping. It would also put more on-street parking, so you wouldn't have these odd lanes where sometimes it's 2 lanes of traffic and sometimes it's 1. So all of that would be part of the work.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
This is going back a couple of years, but when we were looking at putting bike racks in various places, like Old Orchard got a couple. We couldn't really find any place to put them in Crossroads. That's a tough district.
It's a really tough district. I think right now one possible option could be approaching Digital Strike. He really has improved so much in his area. And now that the building to the east of him is also his building, he took over that little Spanish looking building. He now has more sidewalk in front. He might be willing to look at it, and he's a Webster resident. So that could be an option for putting a bike rack in Crossroads. I can talk with the owner. He's now on the Crossroads Business District Commission.
Oh, that'd be fantastic. Thank you.
That'd be great.
Any other questions or thoughts? Do we want to touch on this? Seems like, yeah, it's I'm sure it's a monumental task to do things on multiple jurisdictions for any type of roadway. So
I just want to compliment whoever is at county or city, but the bump outs that you're doing by Avery School, they're awesome. Just awesome. They're not done yet, but they're just, is that you guys or is that the county?
The Public Works Department's working on that.
It's just awesome.
okay. I know we've got a we need to schedule an upcoming meeting here, but one thing I did want to bring up, and I didn't seem like I made the agenda, but Joe, I know we kind of went back and forth about kind of touching on the SG Collaborative.
So that would be, and I didn't put it on here only because I didn't know that we'd have time, but with SG Collaborative, if you want to share information, I'd encourage this to be a discussion that is had perhaps at the next meeting. They haven't moved very far yet, but with your interests and concerns, it would be a good time, I think, for you to share your concerns, thoughts, etc., with Laura. And then she can take that back. You can also participate in their sessions as well individually. But if you as a group want to discuss it, I think it would be a great opportunity to do that perhaps at our September meeting.
So
Okay.
Eric, that was actually on my list of updates. As the timeline goes right now, and Joanne's right, it's lagging a little bit as everything is, it seems right now. But the expectation was that sometime in September is the next town hall where they will present their their initial design. And I know some of you have participated in town halls along the way. If you have not gone to their website and done the site mapping exercise and answered the survey questions there, I strongly encourage you to do that. Because one of the things that we on council have said to them is when you present us a plan, we want to see that that plan reflects the public engagement that's happened. And also, I mean, many of your names are familiar, even if we haven't met yet. And some of them I know have popped up on those meetings. So, and yes, I am happy to hear anything that you want to tell me about this. I can't give you any information because we don't know anything yet. We haven't seen anything about the actual design. We haven't seen anything about financial incentives that they're going to seek from the city. That is all supposed to come to us sometime within the next 4 weeks, I would guess, but I also wouldn't be surprised if it's pushed back.
And that's where I think the thought was throughout various meetings that they've had, town hall or directly with, key stakeholder groups or what have you, they indicated they would be open to having direct conversation with certain groups. And I think the thought was could this group get a part of that direct conversation before the train leaves the station? So if they come back with design one, then that's essentially kind of already moving through. Like they're absolutely, I agree that any one of us individually putting those comments in their engagement portals and their maps, I think is all probably the best way. But as far as a group, our ability to kind of discuss and present those values, especially with sustainability being one of those kind of top values that that they're saying that they wanted to kind of guide themselves, their design by. I think it would be great if we could be kind of direct and have with some type of direct conversation. If that's not, then yeah, if we need to have a further conversation next month, I mean, whatever works best. But I think especially the project of this magnitude, the sooner the better with any of it. So before too much work gets done, and it takes a lot more time and effort in man hours, therefore money, for them to be able to kind of reincorporate some different concepts.
So Larry Chapman, who is one of the principals, has indicated that he wants to meet with as many people as possible. So I think absolutely that's a possibility. It would require, if again, more than 4 of you want to come, for us to notify, and then it becomes a public meeting. And Joanne, you can correct me if I'm wrong on any of this. So if you all would like to do that, I think we certainly can facilitate it, but we would have to move pretty quickly to make sure all the public notification and scheduling could get accomplished.
Would it be possible to go? I'm sorry.
I was going to say, I know that we're going to talk about scheduling regularly for this meeting as it is. I'm happy to call Larry and tell him that you all would like to meet with him and see if the next meeting is too far down the road. Or Eric, you certainly can do that as chair of this commission as well, or Joanne can do that, because I imagine Joanne is in more frequent contact with them anyway as they need things. So let's figure out what suits your purposes best.
If I mean, I can leave that up to the group, but is there interest in is there interest, and would it be possible to have our next meeting essentially kind of scheduled align with what those representatives from SG Collaborative could accommodate, so that way we all potentially could have that discussion with them?
Would you like me to do like I did last time with the doodle poll? And because if I could do it that way, then we could, or I could just send you the exact date. But hopefully if we, if I contact them really soon, I could find out, or whomever contacts them, we could send out a poll and then decide from there if the majority can meet at that time. But I'm happy to do it.
That sounds great, Joan. Yeah, if you, that seems great. I mean, that way you could easily kind of filter and who the best, what the best option is. But yeah, in the meantime, if everyone, if you haven't already, go several times, all the more the merrier, of putting in comments, thoughts, feedback on that site. It's really good interactive portal, I feel like. Great. Okay.
So would you like then the September meeting to basically focus on that, and then we don't really cover anything else except perhaps spend a few minutes just to get the update on the reusable grocery bag grant? I mean, I will send the information in advance, but if you wanted to talk for a few minutes on that too, because I'd just like to get some ideas on the agenda. Okay.
I think this is a major project for Webster, and I think that this has a great opportunity for us to steer. And I think that us spending our energy on that sooner than later, so that if that takes up close to the full agenda time, I think that's time well spent. What does everyone else think?
I agree.
Agreed.
Agreed. Yep. Totally.
Awesome. Great. Okay. Well, with that, if we can get a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I have like 2 minutes of your time before you do that. I know we're over.
Yes.
Because I have a longer list than that. It's not a very long one, but that's okay.
Sure, thank you so much.
Sure. Also, so I referenced earlier, I just wanted you to know, those of you who signed the letter, I think it was Jamie, Elizabeth, John, and then Kim Cole, who is not here, the letter about questions for the city manager candidates when they're here. Just an update on that process. Application period for it closes this week. Our consultant will spend a couple of weeks reviewing resumes, doing background checks, some preliminary things, and then we expect by mid to late September for candidates to be forwarded to us, so that interviewing will happen probably in late September. There will be, in my expectation, I don't get to do this, decide this on my own, but my expectation is that there will be public places for engagement. I have added those questions to my running list of things to ask our candidates about, but there will be places where you all can ask those questions as well. And I'll be honest with you, my asking those questions is great, but people showing up at events, which will likely be virtual events, and asking those questions also signals to my colleagues how important this is to our community. So please know that I've got them, and I pointed them out to my colleagues, the letter you sent at our last meeting, but it's important that you all voice that as well during the process, because you know, it seems like it's a routine thing, but I would argue that this will be the most important thing we do for the next 5 or 6 years on the city council, because that's how important a city manager is to how you run a city. Second thing is, I have received another email from Kat Golden at the Missouri Botanical Garden about the Grow Solar program. They want to talk to you all. It's not my job to tell you whether you talk to them or not. I'm just passing along that they are being as persistent as they can be during COVID. So keep that in mind. Mara's still here, and I'm going to take advantage of Mara being here. If she could, Mara, do you mind giving them just a quick summary of the zoning issues that the Plan Commission will be considering likely this fall? Because I do think that, especially for stormwater retention and some other things, there are real impacts here.
Sure. A couple years ago, we made some code changes, or staff proposed some code changes to decrease the maximum allowable size of homes on lots. And at that time with the council, we kind of ended up somewhere halfway between where we had been before and where staff wanted to go in the final approval. We're seeing more and more with the numbers of houses that are going up as new construction, that they're maxing out 2,800 square foot houses, 3,000 square foot houses, where you had previously had a 1,400 square foot house. So we are trying to revisit that again, especially for undersized lots that are less than the 7,500 square foot, and looking at some of those things to physically, volumetrically try to make it fit better with our community. In addition, we're looking at one other option, which I think might help with trying to get developers to come in. And in fact, I talked to one this week who said, wow, if that was an available option, I would go after this. And this option would be to change for all of our A4 districts. It currently allows you to have a 2-family structure, but only if 40% of the houses on that block are already a 2-family structure. So it basically means that only like 3 streets in all of Webster Groves can have new 2-family structures put on them. So we are going to look at some changes where it would still be in that same zoning district, would allow them to potentially do, say, a pair of townhouses. And right now, if you can have a 2,800 square foot house, instead you could have 2 1,400 square foot townhouses, which would be more affordable. Would also be, sharing in terms, in some cases, maybe the resources, possibly a shared driveway that comes back to something with a shared detached garage or just a shared pad area. So we're kind of looking at that as another option. And so those would be public hearings. We're looking to potentially have our first public hearings at the October Plan Commission meeting. We've been really struggling with how to get public input because this Zoom option is just not the best. But I think in talking with 5 or 6 other communities, we found some ways that we could make it work. So it'll drag out a little bit longer in order to get the feedback, but we would probably start with a presentation about these code changes at the October Plan Commission meeting.
Thanks, Mara. And one thing, I don't know if you all know this, our city website allows you to sign up to get both City Council and Plan Commission agendas sent to you via email when they are posted. It's called Notify Me. So if you go to the city website, you can sign up so that the Plan Commission, so then you'll know when this is on the agenda and you can follow its progress. And as Mara said, it sounds like it's going to be extended for a while, so there'll be plenty of time for you to make public comments. But we are likely, Mara's not allowed to say this, I think I am allowed to say this, we are likely to hear from developers who aren't going to like this. And so that means we need to hear from residents who believe this is a good idea as well. So I encourage you to get involved in that. And then the last thing on my list is we, the council, received a letter from Ashton Kutchnell of the Sierra Club bringing up the issue of mayors for 100% clean energy, which I know you all have been through at some point. That is now back to us. And so I'll be honest, I don't know what to do with it yet. I probably need to talk to the mayor and see what's going on. But I did want you to know that since it is related to your commission and it has come to council, I don't know, some of you may know council members who may ask you about that.
What helps something like that move along in council? Us like signing up and going to meetings, or because John Hickey, when he was head of the Sierra Club Eastern Missouri, he came and gave a brief presentation as a resident. How do we help that move?
Was the presentation here to this commission?
It was to Webster, the Sustainability Commission.
Okay. Would you, I want to have a brief, Jamie, can I figure out a plan and come back to you with a plan?
Totally.
How about that?
Yes.
Because I'm not sure, I'm not really sure how to advise you on this since this has bounced around for a while.
Yeah.
And so if you let me, and I'm going to talk to Joanne and we'll come up with a plan and get back to you. How about that?
And I think if that plan can include related initiatives or resolutions or whatever, things that this commission might see value in, like how is it something that the council potentially could vet, or that we vet before bringing to council as a recommendation, or like which of the 50 different ones out there do we want to focus on, or whatever else. Like if the plan can incorporate not just this one, but potentially others as well. Like what's the best way to navigate through that, to Jamie's point, I think would be beneficial.
When you say others like that, do you mean other organizations that the city would sign on to, or other ideas from this commission more generally?
Both. So
okay.
So there could be multiple multiple organizations that are out there that are trying to move various municipalities in direction of sustainability. So whether it's zero carbon, 100% clean energy, or if it's waste free, or if it's anything that's related to anything under the sun with regards to sustainability. Okay. I mean, there's lots of national, multi-regional efforts that are going on out there. Yeah. So I think historically, that was kind of brought up as, well, we can sign on to these things, but if it doesn't have any teeth, then we're just putting names and signatures down on stuff. So we're not just going to sign off on literally everything that hits our desk. So okay, but then how do we decide which ones we do sign on to or don't, or what's that process, or what's that plan? So.
Well, and Eric, you should know the default has been not to sign on to anything. And
sure.
My understanding is when we did mayors for gun safety, that's not the right word, which we did, I think it's been about 2 years ago now. That, to my understanding, was that's the first time we've ever done anything like that. So you're right, it might be worth thinking about what's the process of having boards and commissions go through to make recommendations like that to us, because this does seem to be a way that lots of organizations function now, and we need to adapt to those things coming forward.
Yeah, I think it's understood that if we sign on to everything that comes our way, then the energy is going to go into any one of those things, but then how, so, okay.
Joanne and I will talk, and I will do a little work, and we'll come back to you.
Okay, great. And just out of my own curiosity, with the back and forth regarding the lot sizes and developments on them, is that also related to the permeability or impermeable surfaces?
It's something that we can look at, definitely. We had gone back and forth on, we don't have a specific number for the impervious surfaces, but we encourage things like pervious pavers. We encourage people to do Hollywood driveways. We have a couple things that we encourage right now, but don't specifically mandate. We do have a total amount of, you cannot cover with structures more than a certain amount on your lot size, but you are more, it's much more flexible about just general hard surfaces. And we've kind of debated how to go about with some of that. So yes, that would be one of the things to talk about. But we weren't focusing as specifically about that. We were focusing more on the total square footage of the houses because they're sort of, you're getting a 2.5 story almost house on next to a single story house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as far as like aesthetics and community fit, that makes sense. If there's way that maybe this group could look at or plug into some of that conversation, or if that conversation is going to have about pervious or impervious or whatever, especially with some of the watersheds and creeks that we have that flood and all that good stuff, that'd be great. I know just for my own purpose of just like looking at a patio and being right next to one of those flooding waterways, like try to look at impervious versus pervious. It's hard to find the resources, and of all the national stuff that came across, Kirkwood actually had some really interesting information about like pervious or impervious pavers. So, but anyway, yeah, that'd be great. Okay. Are there any other items that you'd like to bring to your attention?
I do know that there's a new grant that's like a really tight timeline that was just announced, and like the deadline is like October 2nd, but being that we don't even know what to do with our first grant, if anybody has any crazy ideas, but yeah, it's a tight timeline. So, but I did just want to mention that.
What is it for? What does it cover?
It is, I don't know. It's been mentioned in the food recovery group that I'm working with. And so I can find out more information and send that to you, Joanne, if that's.
Yeah, there's a composting one going around, I know.
Okay.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
All right. Well, with that, I guess if there's a motion to adjourn.
Do we need to set the next meeting first?
I think Joan was going to work with SG Collaborative and
Okay.
identify that timeline to
Good. Yeah. Well, I'll move to adjourn.
Okay, and second.
I'll second.
Okay, great. All in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, great. Thank you all.
Thank you so
Appreciate
much.
it. Yeah, thanks,
Thank
Joan,
you,
for
everyone.
pulling
Good job,
together.
Eric.
Laura, thank you. All right,
Good
thank
job,
you so
Eric.
much.
Good to
Appreciate
see you
everyone.
all.
See you next time.
Okay.